Yo, yo, yo. What's good? What's good? It's Stormybman, and I am back. Welcoming you to Stormybman Live, Boxing Talk. This is number 14, believe it or not, in my series of boxing talks, and I didn't realize I had done that many prior. But we're here tonight. We're going to talk a little boxing this evening, talk a little bit about the fights from last night in a way that I didn't get a chance to last night because Stormy got sidetracked in some other important expressions that needed to be put out there. So just know that I'm here this evening to have some more even-handed boxing conversation about the fight card that took place yesterday. A tremendous fight card that the main event was Spence versus Crawford. And it was a fight that had been highly anticipated for years. We had a co-main that had Cruz against Cabrera. And some people didn't think that that particular fight was interesting or satisfying, but I have to say that fight was a pretty good fight and was just an effort or so beyond Cruz losing that fight. People, it was one of those situations where I don't know that Freddie Roach was able to motivate Cabrera, but we'll talk about it a little bit. And I'm not resigned against maybe sharing the space a little bit this evening. I know that we have others out there who might have some thoughts, and as long as things can remain respectful, you know, Stormy may be even inclined to extend an invitation or so. So just know that that's a consideration, you know. That's a consideration. We'll see how that works. But yeah. And salute to the brother Drew Titan LLC out there in the super chat. He says, break it all the way down, Sensei. The facts don't care about emotional feelings. Everything the scrapbook, the Kirk said about this fight was true. No hate, just basic observation. Salute. Yeah. Just on that note right there, I just want to say this. This is not a thing about gloating or nothing like that. Or it's like, I just wish that people would take what I have to offer more serious, more to the heart, because I do this with that same type of sincerity and approach. This is not an explanation of self, but it's a revelation of self, trying to get people to say, hey, you know what I mean? You might like white bread, huh? You might like wheat bread, huh? But this is a different type of bread. And we're just trying to get you to try it. That's all. If you try it, you may find that you like it. Maybe even love it. That's all. You know, it makes a difference, people. It makes a difference. So, Drew, I don't know if you're still traveling or if you've made it back yet. I'm trying to make some adjustments on my, it's like, my goodness, this thing don't work. Anyway, Just Do Boxing. I see you out there, Daryl Alexander, Curtis Price. Just Do. If you're still out there, you want to click that link, brother. Come on here. I need a more level-headed person to join me on this. You know, you can do that. Join me. T. Berry, what's good? LDBC or nothing. Daniel Mitchell, the man who be deleting people. What you was doing over there on 78's channel, Daniel Mitchell, you was deleting people that was making comments about me, man, and they were positive comments. That's why I asked you that question toward the end of his show. So I'm like, hey, what you doing? It could have been an accident, but I don't know, because it was several different ones that you did, and you just got a little trigger happy, man. That ain't cool, huh? It ain't cool. But that ain't my platform over there, but I don't know what you was doing, man. But you see, I told you, Stormy be paying attention to every damn thing. Drew says, that fight was damn good, but we learned something about Cruz watching that. Oh, yeah. Cruz can't box. That's it in a nutshell. Concealed. Which also explains why he doesn't want to fight anybody but Tank. Because Tank being injured by hand in the fight where they faced off gave him an opportunity to go the distance. And so now he thinks he's in a loftier place in boxing than where he belongs. But when a guy can't box, you saw the results in the main event. What can happen when a guy truly can, huh? So Isaac Cruz, the clock be ticking, and it'll be soon, huh? Yeah. And there are some fighters at that lightweight division, man, with the new Cruz, Al Cruz coming in. They're going to light you up, huh? And being 5'2" or 5'1" ain't going to help you, huh? Doing none of that foolishness. It ain't going to help. PGH Big Dog is out there. What's good with you, man? Daniel Mitchell. Daniel, I want to ask you a question, and then I'm going to leave this alone. Do you think I would have said something if it didn't happen? Think about who I am, and, you know, I addressed it. So just know that it took place, whether it was an accident or whatever, but it didn't look like an accident because there were several circumstances where it took place. A couple of different people making comments, and they were removed by you. So that's what I was asking. after I had been speaking on 78's platform, when I finished and then Divine Sense was introduced and started talking, I went back and I was looking through the comments, and that's when I noticed it. But hey, it's neither here nor there. It's over with. I tell you, see, I've talked about this on my show too. Accountability is everything, you know. But that comes from like people. If someone says a comment you don't like or whatever, and people are given free reign to just do whatever. That's why I say it's about, on my platform, it's about being disrespectful and also being just absolutely trolling. And that's something totally different. What's good, Scrapbook? Appreciate you being out there, bro. You would also be free to click that link if you want, Scrap. You would be more than welcome. I know you're a busy man, but could never get too much of the Scrapbook, huh? Angel Diaz in the building. What's good? Who else? Lewis Hinton. We got you out there. Brandon Corey Williams. What's good? And yeah, Dank Father. Yeah. So I put that image up there, but it wasn't that I was just looking for an image of Earl Spence taking some shots or something. It's like, man, I had cycled through quite a number of images, and it was hard to find some where he wasn't taking some shots. So let that be said, you know what I mean? I was not trying to be like, oh, let me show Earl getting his face bashed in. No, I wasn't trying to do that at all. It's a lot of those. And the photographers do that. They have more assortment of videos, images, and they release the other ones later on, but they try to get the ones that were like most impactful, like, oh, he took a good shot right here and this and that, and those be the first ones they release out there, and then later on they'll bring out some more competitive images. I've noticed that over this time since I've been doing, creating content, and I look for images, and I'm like, what the hell are they doing, man? Just showing a guy getting bashed, so. But I like to go for the images that like got the two guys like going in at each other, kind of like, facing down. That's more entertaining for me, because it's like, and you see me use those type of images. Like I got a dynamite one I use of Sweet Pea Whitaker and Chavez, one of Holyfield and Tyson. I do that. But it's just to, provide a little imagery in the backdrop. That's all. So, but no more than that. Let's see. Let's see, I had some comments in here. Angel Diaz says, yes, sir, you are correct. Got to give Terrence Crawford his credit. Okay, his props. Scrapbook says, at the dinner table, brother. Slid in a quick comment. Keep cooking. Okay, Scrap. While you slide in them pork chops, huh? What's going on over there? Just let me know, are they smothered in gravy or not, huh? That's what I want to know. This is it. Yeah. If they just, broiled or something, that's okay. But when you got that gravy going, scrapbook, you gotta get you some bread so you can sop that up. You know what I mean? So some of y'all don't know what sop that up means, huh? But we've been around a little while. You get to sopping up that gravy, huh? Man, there's some eating going on there, huh? Yeah. Yeah. T-Berry says, Stormy, I want to ask a question. And I was told when I was young, no question is stupid. But I judge Crawford to a degree about what you once said, character matters. And I'm just trying to understand my flaw in thinking, because Bud's character as a man to me seems suspect. Okay, good question there, T-Berry, and I will be right there with you in a moment to answer that question. But I'm going to address, we got my man Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. I'll be right with you in a moment while I answer this question for T-Berry. T-Berry, yes, that's actually a flaw in what you were looking at Bud Crawford about his character. Because from what we have seen of Crawford publicly, and we got a closer look at him this particular promotion, I would just say that his personality is not adorable, okay? But the character of the guy, he's a driven man and father. And he come up under circumstances where his mom never even told him she loved him, you know, growing up. And it put him in a different place. Parenting is so important, and it can affect us all in different ways, positively and negatively. My dislike of Crawford was with his position toward us content creators out here, media wise or whatever. I can understand it, but you have to be able to rise above certain things. But when you try to apply that thought process toward his ability to handle his job, which is boxing in the ring, there are a few who are better in the sport. There are a few, and if any. And that's the whole thing, which is why I try to always, it's like you either want to be lovers of the man or you want to be lovers of what the man does, huh? And that's two different planes that don't coexist, because it's a public person, but they have private lives. You have to be able to compartmentalize what you're observing. And sometimes people mix their peas in with their cornbread and it looks like mush, huh? And then it's not very appetizing when you do that. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to compartmentalize. I do not care for Mel Charlo at all, but he's one of the best fighters in the sport. He doesn't get the type of recognition that some others, including Bud Crawford, doesn't get the recognition that he's supposed to. But a lot of that has to do with his personality and the way he carries himself outside the ring and close to venues where he's always into something, both he and his brother, huh? And that can be very undesirable. So guys need PR representing. You know, they need to be taught, just like you're taught to count and read and write. You need to be taught how to conduct yourself. But it's kind of hard, isn't it, when guys become multimillionaires and they walk around like theirs don't stink, but yours does. And it's a very painful reality when you find yourself wearing those cold bracelets, huh, that Johnny Law can put on you at any given time, especially when you're a tanned man. Yeah. We got more people coming in. Please smash the like button as you enter the building. And as I welcome my young brother, Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good evening, Stormybman. I have to say that today was a pretty good day. And after what we watched last night, I could not have been any more prouder of watching these two men get it on in the ring. I could not have been more proud of both of them. And I salute both of them for making this happen, not just because of the historics of the fight, but because the historics of the Black culture is what's so important about this. I felt that these guys were representing much more than just a undisputed championship fight. They were representing basically our culture as Black people. And for the mounds of people that came out and supported this fight was just overwhelming. It was amazing. And I could not have been more thankful than these two guys. These guys will forever be remembered as the two men that really did a lot for the sport and sacrificed a lot to get there. And I could not have been more proud of both of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is what is supposed to be when you bring quality together. When you bring quality together for the single purpose of giving lovers of the sport the best that the sport has to offer, it can often end like this, meaning in numbers, voluminous support, the quality and level of what you witness, all of that. But do not let those who hold it up off the hook. Promoters are in the way of these fights, and they're not allowing these fighters to grow like they should and become as prosperous as they should. See, some of these promoters, so-called advisors and so forth, are there to be an influence so that they can have a stake in what's greenlit and what's not. And the fighters, when they start to become economically empowered, they have to learn how to wean some of these influences, heavy influences, out of their lives because they're not working at their best interest. We see a fight last night that could have taken place a few years ago, and we know that Bob Arum would not make a deal with PBC, and PBC would not make a deal with Bob Arum, and we didn't get the fight. But as soon as this young man made himself independent from Arum's company, things started rolling in the direction of taking place. But there was still holdup on Spence's end as well. It wasn't Spence, but it's those people around. And let me tell you something, folks. When you guys become your own promoters, you have your own promotional groups and companies, stop dealing with those folks like that and let them know that if you do deal with them, they don't have the right to uphold what you want to do and the moves you want to make, because they do it to certain individuals. This is why, listen, I'll grant Heyman one thing. He assisted tremendously in some of these guys becoming more self-managed with their monies. But some immature guys still need help and work. Read Adrian Broner. But that being said, there are others still who can become great businessmen. The opportunity could be there. But there's a reason that flies and fleas stick close to mammals, to animals. out in the wilderness, in the woods and everything. And sometimes to you when you're out in the park, huh? They right there flying around you because you're a host that they want to thrive off of. Flies, mosquitoes, all types of insects that suck blood, huh? What do you think promoters are? That's exactly what they are, huh? And they're there to live off of your blood and create generational wealth off of your blood for their business and family. Yeah. It's as simple as that. And when you say it like that, you turn your face up, don't you? You get that old Snoop Dogg look that I talk about, huh? Where you look and you got that image of just snarling, huh? Because that's exactly what they do. I'll use that fight with Deontay Wilder and AJ that was proposed many years ago. And AJ was saying, maybe for 50 million, I'll fight him. And even though AJ threw the number out there or whatever, Deontay and his people was like, if the guy wants 50 million to fight, we can make that happen. We have the reason. And he look into his people, get in touch with AJ's people, and it was right there. And AJ, who was still a young pup in the game, particularly at that time, went and revealed everything that Wilder said to him to those people who are pulling the puppet strings of his career. And of course, they guided him away from accepting something like that because that type of money, that type of promotion, that type of deal was not advantageous to them. They were so-called guiding his career. They were greenlit or not with his next steps. And that type of economic empowerment meant that was exclusive to AJ, not to them. And so they nixed it. Think about it. For your own best interest, but you're my promoter, you're going to tell me not to take this deal. Do you think the Hearns have problems with generational wealth? Think about that for a moment. These two brothers fought last night, and I haven't heard much said about their financial end of it, and I don't really care about that. I never have. But some of you on the internet like to talk about those things. I don't know why. Because you won't discuss your own finances on the internet, huh? Hell, your text message blings on your phone and you hiding it. Oh, who's this texting me? You don't want nobody to know anything about you, but you want to know everything about them. See, that's why no filter society is not good. I just want to know when they training for their next bout and when is the date and what, where it's going to be held and what time should I be turning my TV on. That's what I want to know. Huh? I don't care about if the guy's buying his next Ferrari or if he just had another baby or I don't care about that stuff. It's like those folks who go everywhere and they got to take pictures of their food and everything. The food is supposed to go in the belly, not into the camera phone. Huh? What the hell is wrong with people? But this is the society that we live in. That doesn't mean you have to participate like another mindless minion. But when you come here and I say these things, you get mad. You get mad at me. What else you got, Abel? What do you want to talk about regarding yesterday's card? And then we could talk about the card itself, because I didn't get a chance to do that last night, and I do want to acknowledge the fights that took place.
Well, I will say that I didn't get an opportunity to watch the card myself either, so I kind of was working kind of a little late. So, but thankfully, the usual suspects had the link. They emailed it to me, and I was able to watch the main event, of course. Now, I will say this though too, from my perspective, of how I watched the fight. The way I looked at the fight was that I was heading into this fight as a close, chess move type of a fight. I felt that those two guys were, extremely skilled. It was going to be a close kind of a fight. But what I didn't expect was for Terrence Crawford to basically counter and utilize his effective, accurate counterpunching and timely quickness to basically outbox Earl Spence Jr. And after the second round, when he hit Earl with that jab, with that flash knockdown, I was looking at 7-8 when I was watching it with them, and I was like, "Oh man, I think that this is going to be a preview of what's about to happen." Because normally you don't ever see that. Because one thing with Earl, he's a boxer puncher type of a fighter, and he's looking to try to box you and try to hurt you and try to overwhelm you. And he was not able to overwhelm Terrence Crawford, because Terrence Crawford did a great job of using subtle feints and counterpunching to throw Earl Spence timing off. Because I had the sense that Earl never had to face against a guy with that kind of ability like that. And when he had to face that kind of ability, he got flustered and he got confused. And even when Derrick James was giving him his instructions, at that point, Earl was kind of tuned out of the whole situation, because he felt like, man, I'm getting bullied. I'm getting outboxed. I'm just going to have to try to, pull my will against him and try to get him out of there. And it just wasn't working. So by the time the 7th round came, the counters were really, taking their toll on Earl. And he was just counterpunching him to death. And it just set him up to where he got knocked out. So it was just a masterclass performance by Terrence Crawford. And you can no longer deny his greatness ever again. If whatever doubts that anyone had about Terrence Crawford heading into the fight, all that is put to bed for good. The man is on another level. You know what that kind of remind me of, Stormy? You obviously remember Mayweather versus Diego Corrales. When I watched that fight again earlier this morning, I felt the same kind of thing when watching that fight, when I was watching what Terrence Crawford did to Earl Spence. Almost the exact same thing. Just unbelievable quickness, timing, punching power. Just everything was working for Terrence. And he had a great game plan by Bomac and his team. And it worked out. And so that's what I felt about the fight. You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, I'm moving my buttons around here. Yeah, it was interesting because it looked like one guy was ready and one guy wasn't. But that's a very quick, short way to say it. But it also parlays into something. I've had a chance to listen to a few shows today and comments and go back and listen to what some people have had to offer. Well, you mentioned Mayweather and Corrales, right?
Correct.
I'll give you a bigger one than that. Tyson and Holyfield.
Good one. That's a good one.
When they first came together, Holyfield was really considered on the way out because he had had a miserable performance with Bobby Chairs. He had been stopped by Riddick Bowe. He just wasn't the real deal anymore. So Don King, in his infinite wisdom, finally told Mike Tyson, hey, he's right for the pickings now, Mike. Let's get him. But one thing they never accounted for was throughout his time and tenure as a heavyweight contender and champion, Evander was never given his just due respect on being a heavyweight champion. And though he had his wars with Bowe and everything, people still didn't see him as the guy who could walk that walk. And Holyfield always endured questions and taunts and challenges from the public about whether or not they felt he could deal with Tyson. You're the heavyweight champ right now, they would say, but you ain't beat Tyson for the titles, and you can't beat Tyson. I bet Tyson will take those titles from you, blah, 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 blah. Holyfield listened to all of that. And he fought and he won fights and he lost fights. But when the opportunity came to face Mike Tyson, finally, all of that talk, all of that rhetoric, all of that criticism, all of that ill advisement of others when it came to him being considered a real heavyweight and all of that, he just bottled it up as motivation. And he got in there against Mike Tyson and he whooped Mike Tyson's behind. I kind of see that in last night's performance out of Terrence Crawford. And I saw new wrinkles out of Crawford, though I have watched him for years defensively, that was so much more impressive than some of the things he was doing offensively. The ability to hit and hit well and be precise and all of that, that's a skill within itself. He's always had that. The public has not acknowledged the people that he's been stopping 9 in a row, 10 in a row, now 11 in a row at welterweight. Nobody wanted to acknowledge that. But he ain't fought nobody. Well, the guy last night was supposed to be somebody, and he stopped him too.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, remember, people are looking at the wrong things. The man's dangerous. And I've said this to a smaller degree, but I'm going to increase the intensity of saying this so people will start to look at the correct things. The minute Derrick James dismisses Crawford, his ability, and who even's training him, and all of that, set Earl up for failure.
That's a good point.
I was just on 78's platform a little while ago.
Yep, I heard you.
They were having a great discussion. But if you're going to tear down your opponent and you're not going to acknowledge them and not give them any credit for anything, if you were to defeat them, why am I giving you any credit for somebody that you're calling a nobody or nothing? And even in his infinite wisdom, he knew that Crawford was a threat to Earl, but he never behaved like it. Because when there's a threat, you get on guard, don't you? You get alert, don't you? It's like your mom tell you you done messed up, but when your dad come home, she gonna tell him what you did. All of a
exactly.
You want to get on your best behavior. You're hoping that dad come home tired or just hungry and want to go to bed or something. Please don't let him get after me, huh? But that same notion of being on, it's like being on alert, being on guard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with these, these trainers, a lot of them are like the fighters as well. Some of them are former fighters like James, and they adopt these bad habits as well, and they don't want to acknowledge it. Remember, accountability is something I talk about all the time. James invited that, but not just that fight. I spoke about it when he had Marcus Brown in there against Arthur Bitterbeef. Yeah. Marcus Brown went to Derrick James to be his trainer for that Bitterbeef fight. And I had said, I hope that James cares enough about Brown like he would Charlo and Spence, because once Bitterbeef get after him, he's going to have to stop that fight or do something, because Brown ain't beating Bitterbeef. He's not. And he didn't. And he got pummeled, punished, tore up. Not unlike Earl last night. And guess what? DJ's performance last night as a coach and trainer emulated a guy who he really had no long-term relationship with and everything. So is there a problem with Mr. James? You see, just like we were giving Stephen Fulton so much credit for being a great outboxer and everything, but when he got in there with somebody that could really turn up the heat on him, he couldn't get out of the way of it, and he succumbed to the pressures and the power.
Yep.
Well, what happened last night? You're telling Earl to do certain things that he obviously can't get done in this particular night, in this instance, and you got no answers. You got no plan B, because you done sold the world that you're badasses. And when it is time to show how bad the ass is, you find out there's a badder ass. Have I not said this on my channel before? There's always a tougher guy. Didn't I say how many times?
So many times.
You win with this most often in life, not with this. Because this can be compromised. This also can be compromised if you haven't been taught to utilize it properly. I talk about these things all the time. After 3 rounds, I said this fight is over. The fight is over. Why? Because of the mindset of the men battling. But James could have made a change in that fight. Do you know what that change is? Abel and chat, do you know what that change is?
I do not.
He could have had Earl do something that Earl doesn't do. And he may have looked awfully clumsy because they've sold the ticket and the world on being badasses. But what he could have did is start telling him, move around. Move around. Get your legs back under yourself. Tie a guy up. Let him win rounds by scoring points, but not doing damage on you. And we come back and we regroup and we start attacking a different way. But because they were so uniform in their attack mode or whatever, never realizing that they may have to fight a different type of fight. And even had they done that, maybe Bud adjusts to that as well. But you still have to try, because remember, I talk about adjusting to the adjustments. Sometimes when a guy make an adjustment, other guys say, "Oh, that's it for me. I can't. That's all I got. I can't do nothing else," and they shut down. But by moving around, they may see it as a point of weakness. I see it as a point of intelligence. Why is it intelligence, Stormy? Because I'm getting pounded in my face by a right hand jab that my head can't get off center line, and keep taking these shots, and my face is already busted up after 4 rounds. Move around. What's all that road work for? Stamina? You did all that road work for stamina, but you're getting pounded on. So stamina is not a factor, is it?
Right.
Where's ring generalship? Where's ring IQ? Huh? You see?
Yes, I do.
Now, that starts in the gym, though. It'd be really hella hard to start it on the night of. But even if it had been introduced in the gym, at least if you're going to that, he says, "Oh, well, coach told me this in the gym before, so I guess it's time for us to pull this out of the tool bag." It's funny. When I saw Spence fight Shawn Porter, I noticed that Shawn Porter was giving him angles and turning him and hitting him with punches. And Shawn Porter really doesn't crack at welterweight like that. And I imagine myself thinking, if he's getting hit with shots like that by Terrence Crawford, he gets knocked out. And what happened? First time ever knocked down as a professional. Second time ever knocked down as a professional. Third time ever knocked down as a professional. Where was the knack for protecting oneself at all times? You got him once, maybe twice, to hit me upside my head, and I'm defending myself after that. You ain't gonna keep hitting me, huh? And the people might say, "Look at him, he moving out the way, he running." I might be, huh? Till I could get myself in a position where I could get you, huh? Because you don't know what my next move is, but I'm gonna be watching everything you do, and you're gonna be coming at me, and I gotta set a trap for you, huh? A wounded animal is a dangerous animal. That's what I've always heard. So again, I'll ask you, and I'll ask the chat, where's this pedigree of Mr. James?
I didn't see it in the instructions, and the way the fight turned out, I didn't see it in Spence. It just felt like Derrick James could have done a lot more to try to get Earl out of certain situations, and he didn't do that.
Before the fight.
Yeah, prior to the fight. Exactly.
In the gym. Let me tell you something. He got another fighter he getting ready to put in there with somebody. And this guy got real emotional problems,
Well, I know where you're going with this.
confidence problems. And if there's any resistance whatsoever from Mr. White, Houston, we got a problem.
Yep.
Because Mr. James is not helping his guys in the right way now. I can see that. I can see it. One of the worst things he could have did, the worst. You remember All Access?
Absolutely.
You remember him sitting out there at the TV? They had the cameras on him, and he's watching film on Crawford. And they show Crawford and his mom dancing. And he was like, oh, she better not bring her dancing shoes on this night. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Very clearly.
Now, I don't know if he actually knew this or not, but that night was Miss Crawford's birthday night. Do you think this man was going to go out there and lose on his mom's birthday?
Absolutely not.
Do you
No
think
way.
this man is going to go out there and give in and submit to somebody who says something? And yeah, I'll take it as disrespect about his mom better not bring her dancing shoes. Now, let's back off of that for a second and look at it from a different bird's eye. We're talking about Bud Crawford here. We're not talking about, Porter or Garcia, any other guys. They could let something like that roll off their shoulder. Oh man, he just talking stuff, right? Not Bud. See, earlier, T. Berry was asking a question in the chat about his disposition and knowing who you listen. You don't poke the bear. You don't. That was a comment that he should not have allowed on the air.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously. But you know what? Brashness, boldness, overconfident, and cockiness. That's what'll get you. See, if he was saying things more of mental substance and fortitude, a word that he likes to use, fortitude. I noticed that about him. He should know better. Because you're dealing with an assassin in there.
Yep.
I remarked, now, after watching last night's fight, now you know why Kenny Porter stopped the fight, don't you? Think about it before you answer. Now you know why Kenny Porter stopped the fight. I said this when the fight happened. Nobody listened. Nobody cared. Just like they don't care right now. They just want what they want, like a baby crying for whatever. Thinking the louder it cries, the more you're going to submit or give in. It don't matter about you crying, because I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. When he pushed Sean down that first time, it was almost effortless. It could have happened earlier in the fight. But the man has a friendship with Sean. He didn't even want the fight with Sean. Not because he was afraid of Sean, because he considers him a friend, and this is the hurt business. He didn't want to hurt Sean. But he had to put him down. He had to start doing things to Sean because they were saying he was possibly behind on a scorecard. And he went right to business. So when Kenny saw it happen the first time, he's like, okay, let's see how Sean reacts. And Sean got up And within moments, he was down again. Kenny said, that's it. You know why? Because he knew who that young man was. Kenny ain't no damn fool. Even though he picked Spence for this fight, that may have been spite. Because this is the same young man who at the age of 16 wanted to meet him outside in the alley and was ready to go. And he had to back off that young man because either he had to hurt that young man or something else. And that's when they let Bud go. That's when because he had something in him that's a little bit different. It's not a lot of guys like that. And I'm not saying that is a prideful thing to have. I'm saying, though, some firecrackers are dangerous and they need to be handled with care. He pulled Sean out of that fight and took the brunt of the loss, made it look like, oh, Sean wasn't training well and this and that or whatever. They had shown Sean train in camp. He was training hard. So what you gonna believe? Your lying eyes or his lying mouth? But Mr. James, that ain't your son. But you're supposed to care for him like he is. And he's getting hurt. He's being pummeled. Far worse than Sean, who was a friend. So Earl ain't a friend, but he's that guy that y'all been talking about him. Y'all been putting him down, saying he ain't fought nobody. He ain't nothing, and he ain't on my level, and he lighting the ass, and all of that stuff, right? Bulletin board material for a firecracker. You see? You don't play boxing. I wish Roger Mayweather, RIP to that good brother, because he used to tell the truth about stuff like this.
Yep.
And sometimes the way he articulated it wasn't as elegant as I would say it. But he could express it in a way to make it and drive the point home to all of you. Because that's what you need in this sport sometimes. Now, I want everybody out there, when you get a chance, go Google the fight between Joe Lipsy and Derrick James and watch that fight. You talk about fortitude. You talk about putting somebody out there with a game plan and knowing what they're doing. Just go watch that fight. Derrick James, Joe Lipsy. It's on YouTube. I watched it about 3 weeks ago. And then know that this is the man that was training the superstar Spence. Yeah. You see, I would have come at them a whole different way, the Crawford camp. I would have given them all types of acknowledgments and accolades and butter them up and everything and be like, man, this guy's the best. It's the toughest fight in my career. You know, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy that we finally getting this on, blah, blah, blah. And then when the bell rang, I'm out there trying to take his head off. Because maybe he might have let his guard down just a little bit instead of coming at me like the assassin. Guns blazing. 90% of this game is mental, man. I talk about it all the time. Others have said it, but it's really interesting when people don't put it together. Yes, you could say the old cliches, but it don't mean nothing if you can't equate it and place it where it belongs. And a lot of people are incapable of doing that. Sylvestial says, boxing is a business, Stormy B, man. There is no family in this. Yeah. People talk about Bomac. Bomac is a capable trainer. Now, I'll admit, on the physical side, I would like to see something happen where he can take some weight off, because that's not good. Whatever he's dealing with, if he's got a specific condition or whatever, I'm not here to make fun of him. I am not. I would be concerned. I would not want to be in that position that he is. And maybe he doesn't want to be in that. Maybe he does need some help. But as far as him being able and capable, there were not inappropriate messages being conveyed to him and Bud from what I saw in their corner. And when he said to Derrick James at the press conference, you can't hide now, you can't hide no more or whatever, that really seemed to piss Derrick James off. But if you weren't hiding, why was so pissed off? Why did that ruffle your feathers? Huh? You don't respect them. You don't respect what they do or say. But aren't you supposed to take that and turn it into your actions of how you enact success? You play basketball, Abil.
Yes, I do.
Isn't there a such thing called bulletin board material? Huh? When guys speak out inappropriately or say the wrong things and everything, and your team get wind of it, that's all the motivation they need now to go out and kick some tail the next game, ain't it?
Absolutely. I thrive for that stuff. And let me tell you something right now, too. Let me give you a good example of that, too, about the overconfidence. You remember that UNLV team in the early 90s?
Yes.
Right? Now, keep this in mind. They were defending national champions, and they went through the 90-91 season undefeated. But right up until the day they were supposed to face against Duke in the rematch in the semifinals, Jerry Tarkanian had his guys in a local high school in Indianapolis in a shoot-around, and he saw his guys not just being half-hearted, just clowning around, like not taking it seriously, and he was mad. After the shoot-around was over with, he looked at them straight in their eyes like, you guys are going to lose this game. And the reason why you guys are going to lose this game is because you guys are not focused enough. You guys are not hungry enough to win another championship. And truth be told, he was right. Because the Duke team that got blown out by 30 points in the previous year in the national championship game, they came back. They were more mentally tougher. They were more prepared, and they were not intimidated by UNLV. It's not an accident about why UNLV lost, because they overlooked the fact about how they basically beat the Duke team, but they overlooked the fact that Duke was more mentally prepared to basically figure out a way to beat the physicality of UNLV, and they got it done, and they ended up winning the national championship. It happens a lot. So when I was looking at Derrick James in the whole prep to this fight, I was looking at him like, Derrick, you understand this man that you're going to be facing against is a dangerous person, and I'm not saying that he wasn't clowning around. I'm not going that far, but it's just like you didn't take it seriously enough. And when Bomac pressed your buttons, you reacted. And it translated what happened in the fight. So yeah, I finally understood where you're coming from. And it's not an accident why. I will admit, I was one of those people that was questioned Kenny Porter and stopping the fight. But now, after looking back after last night and what happened in the Porter fight, I can't question it anymore.
It's clear as day, bro. But
It's
see,
clear as day.
understand when I say what I say, and sometimes you'll hear me say this because I've said it so many times that I'll end up saying it again. I don't look at boxing the way everybody else does. I don't. And that is why I am granted an opportunity for levels of understanding, because boxers, and Custody Amato said this. Shout out to Custody Amato and RIP to the man. A great boxing mind. He said boxers are the biggest liars in the world because they have to convince everybody that they're a badass, including the man that they face across the ring from them. And they have to convince you that they're tough, they're determined, they're heroic, that they want this, that it's not hurting them, that they're good, that they're okay to go. All of that could be a lie, a big one. One of the biggest names in the sport had one of the biggest cowardice underlines, and that was Mike Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
But he had bravado and a way of taking on something that he picked up externally, whether it was from other fighters from the past or whatever, and make it his own so he could give a disposition that he's a warrior. But recently, when he had Evander Holyfield on his hot boxing show, he asked Evander a question that never should have come out of his mouth toward Evander. But it was more about looking into a mirror for himself. He asked Evander, "Why didn't you ever quit?"
Ooh.
And you know what Evander's response was?
Let's hear it.
Evander said, "Because you're not supposed to." And Mike Tyson just sat there, took a few more drags off of his drugs. But Custody Amato had taught him about the hero and coward years ago when he was a teenager. What is the difference between the hero and the coward? What are the similarities between the hero and the coward? Do you know what they are?
Not really. Let me hear it.
The differences are their actions. It is what a hero does, the commitment to make a move in order to change a moment of trial, that makes him a hero. A coward may make the move to not take an action at all or to run away from the situation. Now, both may feel the same thing, but it is one's actions that they adopt that separates the difference between the two.
Right.
That's
on point.
simple. But it's something that it's like food for thought. It's like life lesson. Because sometimes do you not do what you don't want to do, but you do it because you know, if I don't get up and go to work, I don't get paid today, I can't pay this bill. Or I don't care about that bill, man. They're going to hit me with a late notice anyway, so whatever. You see?
Right.
It's the difference in your action that determines who you really are.
That's so beautiful what you said, Stormybman, and that makes perfect sense why Evander had no quit in his system, even at the detriment in the later half of his career. But in that moment against
I got
Mike,
more for you. Check this out. Since you said that,
okay, go ahead.
in his fight, the first fight against Lennox Lewis, Holyfield, who was never a guy to predict rounds,
Oh yeah, I know. I remember this.
out of nowhere came out and said he was going to knock Lennox Lewis out in 3 rounds.
3 rounds. I remember that.
3 rounds. The third round came. Even the announcers were talking about it. They said, okay, here we go. It's round number 3. And Evander said, Lennox is going up out of there in 3. And they got them fighting. And Lennox was on the move and everything. Lennox was not going to get knocked out.
Of course.
In that round. He was ready for Holyfield. He was not going to get knocked out. But the bell rings to end the third round. And Holyfield turned with his body language and he dropped his arms like this and walked back to his corner. He later tells the story. He says, I wanted to quit.
That's right.
Because I didn't knock Lennox out. He was like, I had went out there and popped off my mouth and didn't deliver my boast. So he said, it shrank me down. I felt like and then he said he looked out in the audience and he saw his son. And he said, how am I going to explain this to my son? So the bell rings from round 4 and he begrudgingly gets off his stool and continues to fight. Now think about that for a moment. The man told Tyson, you ain't supposed to.
That's right.
But he had a moment in his own career. And this was way before he interviewed with Tyson on Hot Boxing. This is years ago. But he said he wanted to quit. So you see what I said about the hero and the coward? The fact that they feel the same, but it's their actions of what they do or do not do that determines which they are.
Right.
Evander was a hero for his son, but he had a cowardice moment. You see, it's as simple as that.
Yep.
Yeah. Some people don't understand that. They can't get with it.
Yep. And it kind of explains what the different mentality between Tyson and Holyfield. Huge, different contrast. Completely different. Because when Tyson had to go through adversity when he went through Buster Douglas, he couldn't figure it out. Same with Holyfield and same with Lewis. All the same.
Yeah. So, but these are the kind of things, man, we put it to the test that we're out here. And again, there are so many elements where we can draw from the universe when we're looking at these fights and see beyond what's actually happened. I have been able to see guys come apart mentally before they have a mental breakdown in the ring. I have seen guys get courage when it seemed like they were on the edge of defeat and all of a sudden something kicks in and they come back. I have seen the ebbs and flows, the turning of the tide. I've seen all of this, which is why I take that information, the experience of observations, and I put it into my toolbox, and I'm able to make these determinations. And it's not so much about being right, but it's being on track. Because if you're on track, you can move on down the road. If you're off track, you have to reroute. Yeah.
Yep. I cannot argue with that whatsoever. It's not arguable. It's what separates the weak from the strong in boxing. It's what it is.
Yeah, man.
I just hope that, in the future that, we can all learn from this and analyze boxing a little more thoroughly instead of with the emotion behind it. And I think this whole Terrence Bud Crawford and Earl Spence, saga, which led up to the fight, really put major awareness about all the things that you said. And I hope that in the near future, we can do a better job of taking things a little bit more thoroughly and using our minds instead of our emotions.
Well, I doubt if that happens because
yeah, I know
we're too, as a society, we're too far gone into this place. It's a very dark place of selfishness and ego and greed and all of that. And there's no accountability. We need more people to put forth the notion of expressing, what's right and what's proper and having consideration and compassion. Do you know people now view being considerate and compassionate as signs of weakness? That is signs of strength.
Right.
Because to show compassion and consideration means that you're taking the focus off of self, off of what you really want to do, where you want to be, where you want to go, all of that, to give for someone else in a moment. That takes a certain type of strength. To close your eyes, to turn your back, to walk away, to not consider, all of that, that's a natural reflective action. How many times have you been driving down the street and then there's a guy that walking down with that sign saying, I'm homeless, hungry, need food, and he's out there begging, and you go right past him because you're thinking like, man, that guy's probably got money. He's out here just acting or whatever, because they've been known to do that as well. But you don't acknowledge him. You just turn your head. You stopped at the stoplight. He walking past your window. You look the other way. How many times? I've done it.
Me too.
So it's like, but then there's always somebody, right, that'll stop and give them something or whatever. Does it make it wrong that you didn't? I'm not implying that at all. But what I'm saying is, for the person that does give, that's showing humility, consideration, compassion for someone else. Me, I honestly admit I've been jaded by those experiences because I've seen the scammers and everything else. So it makes me close up my mind, so to speak, to those circumstances, because maybe I'm ignoring someone who really needs the help. Maybe I'm spot on with someone who's out there scamming, but I don't really know, do I? But at least I can admit I've done it.
Yep. Absolutely. Man, I just was all intrigued of the fight, and hopefully that the rest of the year will give us a lot more surprises. But I'll tell you what, 2023 has been perhaps one of the best years we've had in boxing in a long time, and quite frankly, we deserve it.
Yeah. And this is only the end of July. It's like, shit, we got 6 more months to go, bro.
Yeah, I
Who
know.
knows what the boxing world entails the rest of the way? But
Yep.
I remember back in February of 1990 and then March of 1990, only 2 months into the year, Larry Merchant said in that March month when Chavez and Meldrick Taylor fought, he was like, my goodness, is this only the start to 1990? He was like, I don't know if my heart is going to be able to take this because, it was the Tyson upset by Buster Douglas in February. And then in March, it was Meldrick Taylor and Julio Cesar Chavez. And that's what kicked that year off. But that was just like the first quarter of the year. And the rest of the way, it went okay, But this year, 2023 in boxing has been phenomenal.
Yes.
And not just for the men, for the women as well. I mean, we have witnessed some pretty good stuff, man. Pretty good stuff.
You know what? And I could not have been more happier for you, Stormy B-Man. And I know Curtis Anderson is, smiling in heaven because, you know what? Let me be honest with you. On some real stuff, I felt very, very, heartbroken to the fact that, Curtis Anderson was not here to watch this fight and to give the same analysis he gave to you, to Scrapbook, and to me. Because he said before he had Bud winning this fight, and the way that fight happened, it happened exactly the way he said it. And I just felt like, man, he deserved to watch this fight. He wanted this fight more than anything since the Leonard and Hagler fight.
And you know what? Scrapbook revealed to me earlier today that I didn't know. The referee of the fight, Harvey Dock, was a good friend of Kurt's. They were good friends. They talked on the phone like every day. Harvey Dock, the referee of last night's bout, was a good friend of Kurt Sugar's. And you have to say that is some kind of divine type of listen, man.
That is divine intervention.
Dude, that is Scrapbook revealed that to me this morning.
Oh my God.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me, Scrap. Why didn't you tell me that before? He was like, oh, I thought you did. I was like, man, no, I didn't know that at all.
What?
Yeah,
wow.
Man. Scrap told me that this morning. I couldn't believe it. I was like,
man, I just, it's unbelievable, Stormy B, man. It's just, I guarantee you that Curtis Anderson's spirit was in this fight, what we saw last night, and my goodness, I'm speechless right now. I really am.
That's how I was. I was like, man, that is crazy. But yeah, that's what he shared with me, man. He shared that with me. I was like, I can't believe that. He was like, yeah, Stormy. He was like, yeah.
Wow. I can't listen. You have to tell that. You have to tell. If you go on Smoke City Wednesday, you got to tell them that. You have to. That, man, wow. You got to tell that story. You got to tell that, man. Everybody that has walked with you and Scrapbook, they deserve it, really. But I would understand if you don't want to.
No, it's not even, I'm not even thinking like, oh, I don't want to. I'm sitting here thinking like, I don't understand why Bud Crawford wasn't getting proper acknowledgement from boxing fans. I mean, I have my own thoughts about that and why, but from the first time I saw that kid, he was a damn good little fighter. I'm like, who the hell is this little dude? And he was at 135 at the time. And that first time I saw him, he was on an HBO card. I forget who he was fighting. And I looked at him, and I remember he was fighting. And I told this story before. I said, he reminded me of somebody, and I'm trying to think of who he reminded me of. But I'm like, but it's not just one person. He's fighting like a couple of different guys. And I put it together in my own mind at that time. And I said, you know who he's fighting like? He fights like Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler combined. It's like he does a little of both of what they both do and do well. He can box you from range. He got those long arms, and he's skinny and reedy like Tommy was. And when he hits guys, he's got pop on those punches like Tommy had. But then he can switch up and go southpaw, and then he can become this aggressor that goes after people and try to take them out and stuff. And I'm like, that's what Marvin does. And I was looking at it like that, and I was like, that's kind of who he reminded me of. Now, Kurt said that Crawford remind him of Johnny Bumpus. And Johnny Bumpus kind of fought in a similar style, but he wasn't as effectively equally like Bud is with the Hagler and Hearns type acknowledgement. Yeah, so I'm like, man, this little guy going somewhere. Then he moves up to 140 and captures a title there and captures another title. And you know, they said that he's going to go for undisputed. I remember the Victor Postal fight. They were talking about Postal was going to get him, you know, because Postal was like, at that time, thought to be a guy, one of those European fighters.
Yep, I remember that.
That was going to come over here, and, you know, there were guys like Danny Garcia that didn't want to face the guy. Danny moved up, remember? Well, he hit Postal with some shots and had him backing up and running and stuff. It was like,
oh, yeah, I remember that vividly as day. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Curtis Price. Salute to Curtis Price out there. He says, y'all forgot. Why y'all think Mikey Garcia did not want to fight Bud Crawford? Listen, man.
He ain't lying.
Mikey said something one time about Bud. I think it was a reference to all he does is run around or move around or something he said like that. It was one of those, it was one of those biased comments, right? But I was like, oh, that's just because, you know, you got your work cut out for you if you get in there against a guy with that style, and then he can punch too. So it's like you could open yourself up and get knocked out, if not knocked down, by a guy who's dangerous like that, you know? So it's clear to understand why Mikey didn't want that. See, at least Earl was more planted, you know, even though Earl was bigger than Mikey, Mikey thought, well, maybe I could counterpunch him and get him, you know, or whatever. And that's, you know, that's, if you're thinking short-sighted like Mikey was, that's okay to think that way. But there's a reason why Bob Arum didn't want Manny Pacquiao to fight Bud Crawford. And Freddie Roach let the cat out of the bag years ago before Bob Arum did, because Bob Arum finally admitted, oh, because I know what would happen. That's what Bob said. What do you, Manny is a friend. I consider him a friend, and I know what would happen in that fight. Yeah, we know too, Bob. But Freddie Roach was like, I don't like that fight. He says because Bud Crawford can do everything Floyd could do, plus with power, plus he could switch to southpaw.
Of course. Of course, man.
That was it right there, 20 million to face Bud Crawford. Get the hell out of here. But you're going to go in there with Spence for like less than 10 or something. Get out of here, man. What kind of, these people, this is why I say these promoters, man, we got to crack down on those guys and get them the hell up out of the sport, bro.
Oh, yeah. They're the ones who ruining the sport. Get rid of the sanctioning bodies, too, while you're at it as well. Get rid of that.
Yeah. See, one thing that should be done is like a guy can consolidate all the belts like Bud just did and be considered the undisputed champ and let the belts go. And if anybody else want to test that, they have to fight him, or whoever has the undisputed belt, like a Canelo or Jamel, Clarissa. When you're undisputed, they could let them belts go. And fight until they get defeated. If they get defeated, then the new era starts of trying to collect the belts again.
Right.
But they really need one champion. Really. That's it. One champion.
That's it. Yeah, that's all you need. Just one champion, one belt. That's all you need.
Yeah, but it's like they make all this money off of it,
Yeah.
That's why Earl, he asked, what y'all doing with that money,
What's so funny about it, Stormy B, man? You remember when the WBC was on the verge of being out of business?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that Australian fighter's name. I know who that face. It was the guy that was crowned champion when Roy Jones vacated that belt. Then Roy changed his mind, and then the WBC disregarded their own rules and gave the title back to Jones when the previous guy won it fairly. I forgot his name though. I remember that face. I just don't remember his name.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I forget as well. Some of that stuff comes and goes with me.
It's all good. It's all good. You know what? Let me pull up the pad real quick because I think I might be able to figure that out. But yeah, he was on the verge of putting the WBC out of business until he decided to financially settle with them for undisclosed amount. But yeah, imagine if the WBC would have went out of business, especially during that time when Jose Sulaiman was running things.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it was crazy back then. Okay, so let me look that up real quick. All right, WBC bankruptcy. Hold on a minute. Okay, there you go. WBC bankruptcy. Okay, World Bouncing Council. Okay, it was Graciano Roganani from Germany. Actually, it was. And yeah, you remember that name, right?
Yes.
So it was basically in early '98 that Roy Jones decided to relinquish his light heavyweight title from the WBC, and then they made the bout between I'm not going to pronounce his name, against Michael Nunn to basically for the vacated belt. But then Jones changed his mind and asked the WBC to restate him as champion, and pretty much the WBC violated its own rules and granted the reinstatement. Now it's coming back to you, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically they granted the reinstatement, and then Roganati basically received that letter and then filed a lawsuit in U.S. federal court claiming that the organization's actions were both contrary to his own rules and injurious to his earning potentials. and the judge ruled in the fighter's favor, awarding him $31 million in damages and reinstating him as former WBC champion. And the WBC sought protection by filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Those good schools are getting out of business.
You can't make this stuff up, man. These guys are crazy.
Now you think about that. You imagine if the WBC would have went out of business. Oh, it would have scared off all the other sanctioning bodies. I'll tell you the truth.
Only some guys would go to jail. That would straighten things out.
Oh yeah.
Nobody's going to jail.
Mm-hmm. I know, man. So, but yeah, it was really crazy at that time.
Yeah, man. What can you say, man?
That's a sport that we love to hate sometimes. Absolutely. But I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to go to work in the morning, man. But I just wanted to say thank you for your commentary. Thank you for your honest perspective, and more importantly, I know Curtis Anderson is smiling on this day. I should say on this entire weekend, in fact. And I'm gonna look at Harvey Dock very, very differently, in a very positive light after just finding out who he really was. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Like I said, that shocked me as well when Scraps shared that with me. And Kurt might have mentioned that to me, and I may have forgotten, because we talked about so many different things.
Right.
And, I didn't know that we were going to lose him like that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know. It's like it's just like, we think that we may talk again tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's like nobody knows when our expiration date is. Excuse me. So he may have mentioned that to me, and I just didn't retain it. But Scrap shared that with me this morning. I was like, really? Holy smokes.
Yeah.
There's something divine about that.
That's called divine intervention, OG. Divine intervention, Sensei.
Yeah. But yeah. And I'm gonna get ready to wrap this up as well, man. I'm getting over this bit of a cold. It's like starting to cough a little bit. But yeah, I thank you for coming on with me. I did put the link out there and you decided to pop on. That was great. We had great conversation.
Yeah.
And I think I'm gonna take a week off of putting out so many premieres. I did a lot of premieres leading up to this weekend, and I need a little bit of a break, and I was sour grapes over this past weekend because I put out some good stuff, and a lot of people are not even watching it. So I'm like, when I start moving my stuff over to members only, people gonna be mad, but that's what's gonna happen because the support is just not there. You know what I mean? So, but that's okay. A lot of people like drinking sewer water over ginger ale. So hey, more power to them.
All right, Stormy B, man. Thank you so much for all the great videos you've done throughout the entire week of the fight, and especially the post-fight show. It was great, and learned a lot of gems from you. And you deserve all the flowers. You deserve a well-deserved break from all the coverage you did for this fight. So,
and if not flowers, just a couple of slices of pizza or some ribs or something, send something for me away.
Hey. I want to make sure you live long enough to continue on preach and giving us the lessons. You're like the master sensei, so we got to take care of you.
If you ever notice, you got to watch some kung fu films for this tidbit right here. Them old good masters always had their pupils bring them a jug of wine and some damn chicken or something. It's like, where's my food? It's like, didn't I send you Hey, in those old kung fu movies, them old guys with them long beards and the big old gray
Yeah.
eyebrows, they send their pupil, oh, I had to go into town to get the seafood some wine. You know, it's like, at least I ain't asking for wine, but I said some ribs or a couple of slices or something, and Stormy be happy. You know, that's all. You know. But yeah, man, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for being on here. And we provided a little bit of entertainment this evening, not too harsh, not too
Yeah.
thin, just right in between there. And we had a good audience for the most part. So I appreciate
Mhm.
that, man.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Salute to you, Stormy B, man. Thank you for everything and enjoy that well-deserved break. And if we see you on the Smoke City Mobcast, I can't wait to hear many, many more. But
Yes, sir.
it was
Yes, sir.
all right. Have a good night.
You too, brother. Later. Oh man, that was a great guest appearance by the brother Abil Mahari of Mahari Sports Nation podcast. And that's gonna pretty much bring me to the end of tonight, where I, wanted to just come on here and talk a little bit, Stormy B Man Live, dealing with the results, this is what we called it tonight. And, I got Tuesday Tussle coming up, so you guys be looking out for that. And that's pretty much gonna do it for us, man. Wow. What a weekend, huh? What a weekend of fights. But it is what it is. But we're gonna get on up out of here. I want to say peace to everybody. Have a great week ahead. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. And we up.